Welcome back, Ags. We have got probably one of the most exciting interviews that I have been anticipating as we were building out season 3. Keith Alaniz, he is the board director and founder of Rumi Spice, Fighting Texas Aggie class of 2004. And Keith and I, actually, we go back a long time. We were in the Corps Cadets together. And Keith knew me in my previous life when I was all things HUA and all things military. But the thing that I love about Keith, and I can't wait for you to hear his story, is that Keith has followed his passion and has created a business in a area of conflict in Afghanistan, is an importer, and he is the first guest on Aggie Growth Hacks who has presented on Shark Tank. So Keith, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate your willingness to share your story and to allow us to learn from you. So thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks for having me. It's great to reconnect and great to be on the show.
Awesome. Well, we always love to kick off. We are obviously Aggie Growth Hacks, and we love Texas A&M. So tell me, what is your favorite Aggie memory? And you get bonus points if I happen to be in it. But if not, then that's okay too.
Man, I tell you, as this was coming up, I was going on a run the other day and trying to, knock out a little 5-mile run. And
Good
it reminded me of, I won't share the time that it took me to do that, but it reminded me of, when Greg was, we were in an organization called Runners Rangers, and when Greg was leading that organization, we used to have these 5-mile runs, and we had to make it in 40 minutes. And I was, I just kind of tell myself, like, okay, I did this stuff back in college. I could do it still, but that's been quite a while for both of us now. So it's hard to choose like one favorite memory. I think like just the experience, Corps Cadets and all the challenges of, a young man growing up and how that shapes you. All of that, like, are fond memories, for me. Obviously Aggie football games are great too. And marching into Kyle Field is something that, is just unforgettable moment.
I love that. I wasn't in the Corps, but, I always wanted to be, and so happy to hear everyone, that comes on the show that knows Greg. That's the funny part. A lot of these folks know Greg, and, they don't hold it against him either. So that's even best.
Very well said, sir.
I'm sure Greg and I, if we had to, could knock out a 5-mile run,
Oh, we could in a long time. I could drive 5 miles. No problem.
All right, Keith. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Rumi Spice and, why are you passionate about that business?
So Rumi Spice started as, the concept was to connect farmers in Afghanistan with markets in the U.S. A few colleagues of mine who we knew each other from the military, we had all served in Afghanistan. And it was, during Afghanistan where we discovered this problem. And the problem was that Afghanistan farmers, 85% of the country is connected to agriculture in some way. And the farmers lack an access to markets. And at best, they can sell in their local village markets. The better ones can sell in the city centers like Kabul and the major cities. But as far as reaching international markets, it just hadn't happened. And, through 40 years of warfare, they've been completely cut off from the international marketplace. So a friend of mine from the military, Kim Jung, my co-founder, we got together and thought, hey, we can answer this problem. If we can just connect some of these farmers with U.S. markets, provide an access for their goods, we can catalyze economic development, we can provide jobs, and by providing jobs, we can provide stability. So that's sort of how it started. And we started with one single spice, saffron, which for those of you who don't know, saffron is the world's most valuable spice. It's very unique, takes a lot of labor to produce, and it sells for anywhere between, from $1,500 to $2,000 a kilogram. So about $5,000 a pound.
Wow.
It's quite expensive. And these farmers in Afghanistan were growing this incredible saffron with nowhere to sell it. So we thought this was a great opportunity to connect farmers with U.S. markets. Let's start selling their saffron. Let's go to talk to some chefs and see what happens. And, from there, it's just blossomed. And today we're found in over 1,900 stores across the country. We sell saffron as well as cumin. and other spices as well.
Keith, that is wow. That I had no idea that saffron was that expensive. Now, that price that you said, is that the retail price, or is that the price that the farmers actually would get?
That's the price that the farmers would get, Greg. And what's interesting about the price is that, for one thing, the logistics of getting stuff out of Afghanistan is fairly complicated. You have to either ship it by air or by ground, which can take a long time. But when your value of your crop is so high, that logistic cost of shipping by air is, minimal compared to the prices of the product. So that allows us to sort of circumvent the whole, having to ship by ground. Now, the other spices we ship by ground, and we have a whole process for that. But that makes that logistical piece easy. But the really exciting part is that for those who have been following Afghanistan, it's, probably the world's largest producer of opium, and it has been for a long time. And a lot of these farmers that are producing opium don't do so because, they want to participate in the drug trade, that they don't want to deal with people like the Taliban, who are the ones who are involved in this illicit trade. But there's no other alternative for them, or there hasn't been an alternative for them, but for opium. And opium grows in very arid, dry climates. Well, it happens that saffron grows in those same exact arid, high altitude, dry climates. And oh, by the way, saffron is more valuable for the farmers than opium. So what we've done, in the past few years, we work with somewhere between 600 and 900 farmers each harvest. And I would say roughly 2/3 of those farmers were once opium producers and now have switched their field from growing opium to growing a legal crop, saffron. And they get more value for it, and they're not supporting the Taliban. So at the same time, we're cutting off revenue streams for the bad guys. So there's all this positives that come with developing the saffron crop in Afghanistan.
Oh, Keith, that's amazing. That's so multifaceted and so cool that you guys solved that problem in a unique way. Very cool. Congratulations to you and your founders. Now I'm gonna go off script a little bit here. When we were talking a little bit pre-roll, you had mentioned that you are a founder and now the board director of Rumi Spice. So you have actually taken a step back out of day-to-day operations. So the challenge the question I'm going to have is, what has been your biggest personal challenge to growth as you have changed roles within the company, and how have you hacked it?
Yeah, that's a great question, Greg. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, especially founders who start something from the ground up, may find themselves at a point where they, you give all you can to the company, and you find that you have a learning curve to continue growing the company, and it's in the company's best interest to accelerate that learning curve and maybe bring in someone who has the right experience at the right time. So that's where I found myself. We had really solved the supply chain issue. We had, done what hasn't been done in Afghanistan and create this vertically integrated company where we're getting crops out of Afghanistan, saffron and cumin and other products. And our challenge was growing a retail CPG business. Now that's something that, of course, anybody can learn, but people who have already learned that, it's a lot quicker to just bring them in onto the team to help us grow. So we found a great CEO, Patty Doyle, who came to us with a lot of food experience from like large companies all the way to small companies. And that really allowed us to just, hit the ground and firing on all 6 cylinders with expanding our CPG presence. And so that allowed me to sort of step back from, the day-to-day operations and managing Rumi Spice day-to-day. And, the challenge was really like, how do you add value on a strategic basis? Whereas you're used to being in the nuts and bolts, now you're thinking like longer term. You're working more with investors and potential investors. So it's by the way, you're if you're like me, you're probably working another job full time. So you're doing this like sort of in your off time, and that's been challenging. Of course, COVID time's been challenging for everyone as well. But I think that having that perspective of an operator and a CEO and understanding what constraints and what pressures the CEO is under, and also wearing now a board director hat, I think I have a good perspective on giving the CEO space to execute, but also providing the resources to the CEO that she needs to succeed. So I see my role very much as going and finding investors who are willing to help us continue to grow, and been very active in sort of the fundraising model, and then also just keeping being some like a sounding board and someone she can reach out to when it comes to managing the Afghanistan supply chain, because that's still a unique part of our business.
I have never even thought about the spice industry. Honestly, that's just one of those, especially with saffron and Afghanistan. So knowing everything that's happened in the past year to pretty much every single business in the entire world, right? And it sounds like you had some supply chain issues that you did get figured out. How did you get that figured out? I mean, was there a hack? Was there a pivot that you did during that time frame to, kind of get things going again? And how did you overcome that?
Yeah, that's a great question, Chris. When we started out, there was just zero infrastructure for exporting products, particularly agricultural products, out of Afghanistan. So we had to create everything from the ground up, and it was an iterative process of learning what works, what doesn't work. One thing I think is a good case in point with how we develop our supply chain. Traditionally, saffron was grown by farmers, and it's hard. So a little bit about the harvest process. The saffron comes from a flower, which grows for a period of 2 to 4 weeks in early to late fall, depending on the weather cycle. Those flowers are picked by hand, and traditionally they were taken into farmers' homes near the fields and then processed by women in the household or in the extended family who are providing labor but are not generally paid direct wages for that labor. But they extract the saffron threads from the flower that's all air dried and then packaged up and then sold in the local markets. Well, that presents a number of problems for a growing company. One, when you have hundreds of farmers in individual farmhouses gathering and processing this saffron, it makes having quality control nearly impossible. And so, for our larger customers who are expecting consistent quality in what we deliver, we can't do that when we have hundreds of different farmers in different places. So there was a need for us to consolidate this into a single processing center. The other aspect is that the farmers themselves are limited in their capacity to produce based on the number of laborers that they have in their family and extended family. So, a family with 20 people, women primarily who can do the processing can only produce as much as 20 women can produce in that given time period. So they would only grow as much as they could process. So in order to unlock that, we wanted to centralize our processing and, get labor from the community where they could come in and do the processing. And now the farmers who still process in their homes and sell on the market, they get a higher value for the processed product than they do from the raw product. What we do is buy directly from the farmers the flowers, and then we process them ourselves in a central facility where we're able to maintain quality control. And by the way, because we have centralized facilities, we're able to go out and hire laborers. And instead of having this informal economy where the women are working and not getting direct wages, we're paying direct wages to these women, which in a place like Afghanistan, where women were not allowed to work under the Taliban, is really transformative. And we have a number of women who have come up through our system and are now managers and quality assurance managers within the factory. They're supporting, a large family, and they're the major income winner for the family. And that's just really transformative with the way that people view women in that society. So there's a lot of positives that came out to what was essentially a supply problem. And we solved it with some, social benefits as well, and have a tremendous social impact with the amount of women that we're able to hire in our processing centers.
Hey, Keith, when you were talking, I was thinking to myself, this is a microcosm of the Industrial Revolution in the United States, where as a nation we went from an agrarian society into a industrial society. But you have kind of taken that model in very small in Afghanistan, or in that specific parts of Afghanistan. That's got to be pretty cool to kind of see what's old is new again.
Yeah, Greg, that's like such an astute observation, and it's something that sort of dawned on me as we were going through this process. It's like, this is not any different than how the U.S. developed over time, particularly Texas, right? Like, Texas is a really strong agrarian-based economy, and we've sort of developed with improvements in the processing and the production of whatever it may be, cotton or other crops, and that's really like sort of fed the growth of Texas over the next over the centuries.
Yeah.
And
yeah. So you heard it here, folks. Afghanistan is going to be the next Texas. You heard it here. You heard it here first.
That was my big, hairy, audacious goal that you're going to have to. I mean, it really is. You can imagine what would happen to the U.S. if we were subjected to 40 years of warfare. It would set us back, centuries potentially.
Yeah.
And so that's where Afghanistan is at now. But that doesn't mean there's any limits to where it can grow. especially with, the international community helping out.
So tell us, let's just jump right into that. Tell us what is Rumi Spice's big, hairy, audacious goal? What's your 5 or 10-year vision?
Well, I think I can say with a high degree of confidence, in 5 years, you're going to see Rumi Spice products in most retailers. This fall, we're already nationwide distributed in Whole Foods with a few of our products, but this fall you'll see the whole Rumi Spice line in every Whole Foods store across the country. And I think in 5 years you'll see Rumi Spice in Target, every store that you go to, and we're going to start replacing our competitors because we have something compelling to share. Not only are we very high quality spices that are coming direct from farmers, but consumers can have a social impact with the dollars that they're spending. And there's this growing culinary appreciation among U.S. consumers that food is more than just spices, especially is more than just something that it's more than salt and pepper. The quality of the product that you put in your body really matter. And having like high quality products that are organically grown and that are not like sort of big industry products is important, and it's healthy for you. So at 5 years, I with a high degree of confidence, you'll see us everywhere. And in 10 years, Afghanistan is the next Texas. It's similar in size to Texas, similar in population, has a very young populace, and they're producing tremendous goods, not only in agriculture, but other sectors as well. So, I'm still focused on growing Afghanistan as the economy grows and getting more products out of Afghanistan. And I think the sky's the limit for the country, which is, might be a contrarian view right now because, you still hear in the news about conflict. But, when I talk to the Afghans, I don't hear about conflict. I hear about, hope. I hear about problem solving. I hear about entrepreneurs solving problems every day in the country. And that's what gives me hope for the long-term future of the country.
And that's my assessment as well. I mean, I spent a little bit of time there years ago, but it's a very beautiful country. I personally think it was, just the mountains and everything was much more beautiful than other places I deployed. But but the people there are genuine, and the people want to improve their lives and they want to have some freedom. So that's awesome. And I love big, hairy, audacious goal. What I wrote down was every spice in every store is going to be Rumi Spice. So that's awesome.
Pretty cool.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
So I've got a follow-up question to what you had mentioned earlier on that you have a lot of women working in the, I can't remember exactly what you called it. Is it a manufacturing facility? Is it a processing plant? How does that affect, right, the risk that you take on as a business if the Taliban, let's say, takes over control again, or, how does that affect your, as you're looking into the future, how that, how are you going to do things if the Taliban does take over?
Yeah, that's a great question, Chris. And it's something we have to address all the time when we go out to investors. What happens if the Taliban take over? And I'll tell you, political risk is, you always have black swan events anywhere in the world, right? Like even here in the U.S. And it's impossible to predict what might happen politically. But one thing we've tried to do to insulate ourselves from anything that might happen, politically in Afghanistan is that we rely on no Afghan government sources for money or grants or anything like that. This is a pure value for value business where we're providing value to the farmers in terms of our purchasing, and they're providing value to us. And they ask for nothing from us beyond, being a customer of theirs. So, we try to maintain that sort of distance from, getting tied up to in what political party, whether here or in Afghanistan is in charge at any particular time. This is a pure business play with a social impact imperative. And, there's been, we act as a countering force to any sort of like political instability because we're providing jobs, we're providing income for these farmers. And this is just an example. And I think maybe listeners from Texas can appreciate this, or any place that has like a lot of like farm to market roads. So you can drive across Texas and you see FM, this and that. And some of them are paved and some of them are not. So it used to be that our farmers that we work with, it might take us 3 hours to get out to the farm, to go visit the farm where the saffron flowers are grown. But over the last 5 years that we've been working, all those roads are now paved, and it takes like 15, 20 minutes to get out to these farmers. And that's,
Wow.
Not solely because of saffron, but a lot of it is because now these farmers and these villagers who have their own sort of, governance. They meet together and they have their elders and they go advocate for themselves. Now they're going to the city and the province and they're saying, hey, we have all these products coming into the city. We need our road paved, and so that extends the road. And not because the city's trying to deploy security forces there, but because the farmers want that road to go to their area. And, if you can imagine, like, those workers are building a road, and if someone comes in and wants to disrupt that, well, they're going to create a lot of enemies with that village if they want to destroy that road, because that village relies on that road for income. So, for the Taliban, they're making a calculation like, okay, well, now I can't really go and attack these villagers because I don't want to create a bunch of enemies. So it just pushed them away and continues to push them out. And, we're pulling people from the clutches of the Taliban and making them connected to the Afghanistan government. But again, we're doing that without, it's not like we have soldiers there or people with guns or anything like that. We're not forcing them. It's just pure the good part of capitalism. It's making things, the free market is making things better.
Oh, Keith, and I know Chris as well, we're just inspired with the vision that you have and how the impact that you are having in Afghanistan is so multi-layered. And I can talk to you all day. Keith, let's roll right into the lightning round. And you've dropped so many value bombs already. Can't wait to hear this next set of questions. But to answer these questions, 30 seconds or less, and we'll keep flying through it. What is your personal favorite hack, whether personally that you apply in your own life or in business? What's something that we can learn from you?
So this is something I've learned over, relatively recently, but, I like starting from the goal in mind. So when you're thinking about what you want to accomplish, create your objective and then think back to like creating what measurables you have to achieve to meet that objective. And then, take a first step back and then figure out what you have to do today. So instead of thinking, and maybe becoming overwhelmed with all the things that need to occur, you think about, your 6-month, 1-year plan and what you want to accomplish, and then walk backwards and start thinking, what are the steps I need to do today to accomplish that? And that's something you need to do like almost on a weekly basis to keep yourself as an entrepreneur focused. I think one of the biggest enemies of, being a founder and starting from the bottom up is that there's a lot of distractions. So, you can't do everything. You're not going to boil an ocean in one day. You need to take it step by step, and you need to plan with the objective in mind.
Always moving forward. Love that.
Yep. Love it too. So, all right, next question. What's one book, podcast, YouTube channel, whatever, that you get a lot of value out of it that we can share with our audience?
All right, podcast besides Aggie Growth Hacks, which I love, by the way. I've been listening to a lot of Freakonomics and then Guy Raz, How I Built This.
Yes.
So I really love just hearing anything that has other entrepreneurs on there. It's really cool to hear how they're solving problems.
Yeah, those are both great podcasts. Love them. So we know the Aggie Network is valuable, and I know just from talking with you and knowing your story that you have leveraged the Aggie Network as you have grown. Rumi Spice, is there anyone specifically in the Aggie Network or group of people that you just like to say thank you to, send some good bull?
I'd like to say thank you to, the Aggie Angel Network. We have an investor from the Aggie Angel Network, and just being able to, as an entrepreneur, reach out to that network to go and seek advice and seek, fundraising is very powerful. And I hope more Aggie entrepreneurs, reach out to them. It's a great network of people who are trying to support entrepreneurs.
So real quick follow up on that. Did you find the capital or getting the cash valuable, the information, the advice that you've got? Cash is important, but information and helping you grow in some ways is probably even more. But that's my assumption. Is that correct? Or
no, that's absolutely true. Cash is a commodity, as they say, and when you're seeking fundraising, especially for an early stage company, you're looking for people who are going to add value beyond the capital. So it's great to have sort of some kindred spirits within the Aggie Network who can provide both capital and advice when needed.
So agree with that. Okay, so how can the Aggie Network get in touch with you and support you moving forward?
So you can always reach out to me. My email is keith@rumispice.com, RUMI spice.com. So happy to talk to anybody within the Aggie Network. Anybody listening, I just ask you to support our product and go to the store and take one off the shelf. and I'm always happy to talk to people who are interested in maybe, becoming part of our team as an investor and, or just reach out with good bull or advice.
Well, Keith, thank you so much for this amazing interview. I learned so much, and I'm just blown away with the impact that you're having, not only here, but around the world. So thank you for your time. Thank you for what you're doing. And thank you for sharing with us today.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks, Chris. I appreciate it. It's been fun.